You know, it must be tough to be an authoritarian. You promise everybody in the world to get elected. Prices will go down on day one. No more inflation. We're going to end Russia's war on Ukraine. The world's going to respect us. And then you get in, and even though you inherit an economy from your predecessor that's described as the envy of the world by The Economist magazine, you crash everything. The economy today is shrinking. The stock market is sinking. Inflation is soaring. $7 trillion in American retirements and wealth has been destroyed. You've plunged us with your imbecilic tariffs into a trade war with the whole world, except, of course, for your bosom buddies in Russia. So now, only 100 days in, with 100 unforced policy blunders, you're the most unpopular president at this point in your presidency in more than 80 years.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and Jamie Raskin rips Trump to shreds. At a recent hearing, Raskin torched Donald Trump's authoritarian fantasies, mocking him for whining about being held accountable, like a wannabe dictator sulking because the courts won't crown him king.
He controlled the agenda for 100 days. He controlled the House, he controlled the Senate, he's got everything going for him, and his numbers are in the gutter. So now he reaches back into the authoritarian playbook. Go back and please the wealthiest people and corporations in the country. House Republicans want to cut hundreds of billions of dollars from Medicaid, food assistance for mothers and children, veterans benefits, Meals on Wheels, Head Start, any programs that help actual people, all in order to pay for another gargantuan tax break for the president's billionaire benefactors.
This wasn't just a mic drop, it was a full dismantling of Trump's legal defense and his cult-like grip on the MAGA base. Trump wants immunity. He wants a do-over. He wants the presidency without the accountability. But as Raskin reminded America, no one is above the law, not even a failed reality show host turned insurrectionist.
But Republicans want to enable President Trump to keep going. This Judiciary Committee bill seeks to strip the courts of their power to hold an administration in contempt when the president violates explicit judicial court orders. And it doesn't stop there. While they try to defund the courts, they're forking over an astonishing $81 billion to the administration for more of these immigration roundups. The legislation includes a whopping $45 billion for ICE on top of its annual budget of $9 billion for family and adult detention centers alone. This bill is a blank check to the administration to do more of what we've already seen. And to make matters worse, as they race to spend more than $81 additional billion on this, Trump's own DOJ is terminating hundreds of millions of dollars in existing grants. They're cutting funding for county, state, and local law enforcement. They're cutting funding for opioid addiction treatment programs. They're cutting funding for crime prevention, and they're cutting funding for victims of rape, sexual assault, and violent crimes. The grants being cut support local police in solving and preventing crime. They help the survivors of abuse and assault navigate the legal system, and yet they're being wiped out by the Department of Justice.
Trump strutted into office on a throne of promises: lower prices, day one miracles, peace in Ukraine, and respect on the global stage. He said America would be stronger, richer, prouder. But what did we actually get? A wrecked economy, a trade war that blew up in our faces, and over $7 trillion in retirement wealth wiped out. That's not leadership. That's a one-man demolition crew. Jamie Raskin laid it all out. Trump inherited an economy that the economists literally called the envy of the world. And within 100 days, he tanked it. The markets dropped, inflation took off, retirements evaporated, the numbers don't lie. At the 100-day mark, Truman stood at 87% approval, Reagan 73%, Obama at 69%, and Trump 39%, the lowest since modern polling began. And here's the thing, he had full control. The White House, the Senate, the House, all of it. He had every lever of power and still drove the car off the cliff. As Raskin put it, he controlled the agenda and his numbers were already in the gutter. So what did Trump do next? Did he reflect? Did he fix it? No. He went right back to the authoritarian playbook. He reached for the same old cruelty we've seen before, cutting Medicaid, slashing food assistance, taking from veterans and kids, all while handing out another round of billionaire tax cuts for his wealthy donors. That's not populism, that's betrayal, and Raskin didn't flinch in saying it out loud.
This version of an authoritarian America is not what the American people want. Please take note, this is why Donald Trump's polling numbers are in the gutter and an historic low. This is not what the American people are looking for. We urge our colleagues to walk back from the brink here to support many amendments we plan to offer today that will save us money, that will actually address the real problems of the country, and that will protect the constitutional rights and freedoms that we cherish so much in America. This is a test. Are we going to stand up for the majority of the American people, for our Constitution and our Bill of Rights and the freedoms we fought for, or are we going to stand with a president who wants to throw it all away? Thank you.
And if you're sitting there wondering, wait, how is any of this legal? You're not alone. Is it constitutional? Can a president actually do this? Well, they asked him. They asked Donald Trump point blank if he was obligated to uphold the Constitution. And you know what he said? He said, I don't know. I have very fine lawyers. That's the quote. I don't know. What president says that? What kind of leader doesn't even pretend to care about the oath that he took? Joe Biden was right. What president does this? And let's be clear, that answer wasn't ignorance. That was strategy. Trump doesn't want to uphold the Constitution. He wants to test it. He's watching to see how far he can push it before anyone pushes back. This isn't a guy who doesn't understand the rules. This is a guy who wants to rewrite them for himself. He's never read the Constitution, but he sure as hell knows how to destroy it. He surrounds himself with loyalists, not leaders, sycophants, not experts, and those people will say yes to anything, so long as they get to keep their titles and their perks. It's not a government, it's a loyalty cult, a crime syndicate in suits and red ties. And the scariest part, if they get away with one thing, they'll try the next, and the next, and the next, until the law means whatever Trump says it means. That's not democracy. That's not America. That's the rule of Trump, and they're not even hiding it anymore. But Raskin didn't stop there. He turned right to the core of what makes this country work, our courts. And he warned that this Republican budget doesn't just hurt people economically, it guts the very system that's supposed to protect them. Tucked into the language of this bill is a move to strip the courts of its power. If the president violates a court order, they want to make it harder, nearly impossible, for that court to hold him in contempt. Let that sink in. A president can break the law, defy a judge, and the system just shrugs. That's not fiscal policy, that's authoritarian infrastructure. That's how you build a government that answers to one man and no one else. And while they're doing that, they're shoveling over $80 billion more into the machinery of cruelty. Billions for ICE, billions for detention, billions to keep traumatizing families and disappearing people behind red tape. And yet at the exact same time, Trump's DOJ is slashing funding for the things that actually keep communities safe. Opioid treatment programs, victim services, rape crisis support, even the grants that help local law enforcement solve and prevent real crimes. Raskin called it what it is, a betrayal of justice, of oversight of the American people. Because this budget doesn't serve the people, it protects the powerful, it empowers the corrupt. It's a war on the very systems meant to hold the government accountable. And if that wasn't enough, they're also using this bill to attack the agencies that enforce fairness, agencies like the FTC. They want to make it harder to stop monopolies, harder to hold big corporations accountable. They want to bury destructive deregulation inside 100-page bundles of hidden rollbacks so nobody can see what's really being voted on. Raskin pulled the curtain back on all of it because this isn't oversight, this is sabotage. This is how you make government work for the few at the expense of everyone else. Becca Balint didn't waste a second. She came in swinging, not for drama, but because that was in the budget, demanded nothing less. She laid out what the bill actually does to real people. It guts Medicaid. It pulls the rug out from under rural hospitals. It strips nursing home care from seniors and long-term care from working families. These aren't abstract numbers. These are lives. These are the people who show up, pay taxes, care for their parents, and try to get through the month without collapsing. And the Republican response? Cut them off. give billionaires another tax break, then smile for the camera. Belindt didn't flinch. She said flat out, this isn't about helping working people. It's a betrayal of them. As if the economic cruelty wasn't enough, they're also going after the very structure of fairness. They're trying to defund the FTC, the one agency that protects small businesses from being steamrolled by corporate monopolies. They talk about competition, about the free market, but when it comes time to vote, they hand everything to the corporations and strip protections from everyone else.
With this slice of the reconciliation plan, judiciary Republicans will be doubling down on Trump's lawlessness and cruel immigration policies, fueling Trump's attacks on our independent judiciary and making it easier for big businesses to get away with price gouging and making it more expensive for regular people to survive. Today, my Republican colleagues are voting for sky-high fees for folks who are just trying to comply with immigration laws. Does anyone really think that somebody who is fleeing to our country for relief as a refugee can afford hundreds or thousands of dollars to seek asylum or their day in court? It's nonsense, and you know it.
And then came the part that should stop every American cold, the immigration crackdown. Not just the rhetoric, but the reality. This budget pumps billions more into ICE and border enforcement while raising fees on people fleeing violence, seeking asylum, trying to survive. Belindt asked the question out loud, who exactly do you think can afford thousands of dollars just to show up for a court date? It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't pass the straight face test. But it gets worse, because what this bill funds isn't just policy, it's a machine of fear. We're talking about masked agents in unmarked cars, people being yanked off the street, no warning, no oversight, no due process. And if you think that's an exaggeration, just look at what happened in Oklahoma City. An American family, citizens, had their home destroyed by ICE. No judge, no charges, just accusations and silence. And when they asked who gave the order, nobody could answer. Everyone passed the buck. It was chaos under command, and that's exactly what this bill enables. This isn't law enforcement. It's state-sponsored lawlessness. False accusations, no accountability, no recourse. And the people cheering it on, they don't realize they're cheering for their own rights to be destroyed. You're not protected because you voted for Trump. You're not safe because you fly the flag. You're not immune because you call yourself a good Republican. You're just next. That's what makes this moment so dangerous. Because due process isn't some abstract concept. It's not a luxury. It's the backbone of this country. Without it, we are not Americans. Without it, there is no law. Only power, only fear. And we say it over and over again for everyone who lives here. If it can happen to them, it can happen to you. This is the test. And the people trying to gut due process, shred protections, and fund authoritarian chaos with your tax dollars, they're failing it.
So apparently due process has been downgraded to like optional now. No charges, no trial. It's just, he's got a tattoo we don't like, so let's send him to a maximum security prison in El Salvador. Look what happens when a Republican congressman goes on CNN and tries to defend this nonsense.
You've expressed concern about presidents of both parties having too much power in the executive branch. When you hear the president and his top officials suggest that they could simply ignore the court orders here from this federal judge, do you think that is an example of the executive branch overstepping its authority?
No, in this case, I think it's been very clear. There has been a process. You can say it's not due process, but actually he has appealed his deportation. He lost that appeal. He was going to be deported. Whether he should have gone to El Salvador or not is really the one a question. But when it comes to the due process, he did have due process, and he appealed it, and he still lost that. He was deported, perhaps to El Salvador by mistake.
Right. He didn't have due process.
What do you consider due process?
Well, he didn't go before a judge before he was taken off the street and then sent to a mega prison in El Salvador.
You just said there has been a process, but not due process. What? The whole point is it's due process. You can't just say we had a process. We had a process, we decided he's guilty, so we sent him out. That's a process. That's not due process. He's playing mental gymnastics here, folks. Watch Jessica Tarlov on Fox explain a little better.
Getting that hot mic moment where Donald Trump and the El Salvadorian president are talking, they're kind of loitering around at the front of the Oval Office, where they're joking about like, oh, wouldn't it be great if you could take our homegrown ones? You cannot legally send Americans to an El Salvadorian prison camp, no matter what they have done. Senator Kennedy was on our air earlier this afternoon with Sandra and John and said as much. But what is most important is that under the Alien Enemies Act, you deserve due process. And that's what the Supreme Court ruled. And if you go back to World War II, when we were invoking this same act, that people who were here undocumented from Japan, from Germany, from Italy, were allowed to go into a court where they could argue that they weren't a danger to this nation.
There she is on Fox breaking it down. First of all, you cannot deport an American citizen to an El Salvadoran prison, which is what Donald Trump implied and he wants to do, and he said he's looking into it. And secondly, they're looking at the Aliens Enemies Act, which was the act where they put Japanese people in internment camps during World War II, one of the darkest moments in our history, and that's their defense. And here's Pam Bondi sticking to her guns.
It appears that there's not going to be any sort of trial. He's not going to come back. DHS said he would be arrested and redeported if he comes back. Why not show the American people the evidence that he's MS-13 so they can make an informed decision?
President Bukele said he was not sending him back. That's the end of the story. If he wanted to send him back, we would give him a plane ride back. There was no situation ever where he was going to stay in this country. None. He would have come back, had one extra step of paperwork, and gone back again. But he's from El Salvador, he's in El Salvador, and that's where the president plans on keeping him.
The evidence, we're not going to see the evidence?
We have the transcripts from the court hearings. I'll be glad to give you the court hearings from 2019, what we have, sure, with the rulings from the judges, gladly.
That's our Attorney General saying, we got the evidence and we'll show it to you, but we're not going to show it to you. What evidence? You don't have any evidence. He did not get due process. You're just making things up, and your Congress people are paying for it.
And we would like to know what you, as the people, the Congress, who are supposed to rein in this dictator, what are you going to do about it? These people have been sentenced to life imprisonment in a foreign country with no due process. Our government cannot do anything. Why won't you do your job, Senator?
It's why obeying the Supreme Court. Trump's not obeying the Supreme Court.
I never thought it would warm my heart to see a 92-year-old man get yelled at as much as I just watched Chuck Grassley get yelled at and enjoyed him being yelled at, because the Republicans are just sitting by quietly, letting Trump get away with it, and we all know this is dictatorship 101.